realised and grown accustomed to the noise each step my mother and father making at home. The night sky decided to come forth, and the scorching sun took its ray of light and heat to slumber, and so did we. I go into my room and turn the lights off. As I was coming closer to my bed, the sound of me, my mother, and father's footsteps could be heard echoing across the house. We all had gone to sleep. It was 3 a.m. That is the time when I woke up to a strange loud noise, followed by the sound of footsteps. Petrified and half awake, I stayed in bed, hiding under the sheets, ears open to hear any sound that was coming from downstairs. That is, when I realised those were not the footsteps of anyone I know. Realisation hit me, followed by fear and a chilling feeling that gave me the shivers. I could hear him or her. You can't really tell who or what it was. All you could hear was its footsteps, and that it isn't Mum or Dad. Knock, knock. My eyes open wide. I'm now wide awake, taking a peek from under my sheet. The sound of knocking is at my door, but who could it be? Even though the room was dark, it was almost as if you could even see the door trembling with each knock. Knock, knock. That thing behind the door kept knocking. Me, as I'm wide awake now, cowering in fear under my sheets, couldn't even move to answer the door. And to be honest, even if I could, I don't think I'd have the courage to. I could feel my heart sinking, my lungs breathing heavily, as fear began seeping into me. Knock, knock. The thing was persistent. Then I look at the time. It was an old clock that has always been in my room ever since we moved in. 3:05 a.m. I look in shock. Only 5 minutes have passed. How can this be? Knock, knock. I hop out of bed, wearing my pyjamas. Yes, those pyjamas my mum and dad bought me a couple of weeks ago. I was wondering if this is the end for me. Will I ever wear those pyjamas again? My hand, cold as ice due to loss of blood circulation in my hand, reaching out for the door handle. The cold breeze in the room from the open window. I forgot to close it before I went to sleep. My eyes drifting everywhere, wondering what to do. I opened the door, and there it was. A dark humanoid figure. I was rather young, so at the time I thought it was my dad, since it looked like a man in his 30s. Foolish little me felt a sense of relief, and at the same time, curiosity. Why could I not tell it was my dad? Why is he just standing there in the darkness? Many questions, many possible answers, but one thing was clear. That thing was not my father. Little me, so young and foolish, jumps at it, joyfully yelling out, "Dad, Dad, you scared me." Alas, the thing did not respond. Instead, all I could feel was its cold body. It almost didn't feel like a body, as it was not human, more like a manifestation, a pretender. There was no heartbeat, no breathing. Actually, it did breathe, but his lungs didn't move. It was as if looking at a dead person who could breathe and move. Young me, at the time, had realised that was no human, or at least not one that I was familiar with, at my young age. And now that I'm older, I'm sure you and me both realise that there really are no humans like that. Shocked from what I had just witnessed, I rushed to my parents' room as I noticed that thing was just standing there, focused on my room. Yet to my surprise, as I reach the stairs, my heart sinks to the floor, and my breathing intensifies when I saw it. That thing hiding in darkness, in the blink of an eye, turned its face towards me. Now that it was facing my direction, you could clearly see the look on its face. It had eyes, but couldn't see, or so I assume. Since they were pitch black, it didn't have ears, or at least I didn't see any due to its long black hair. It was no usual hair. It looked almost like clay. It didn't have the physics of normal hair, almost as if looking at a mannequin. I sprint to my parents' room. I hear the thing let out a deafening roar, sending a chill down my spine. Tears begin rolling down my cheeks, but I don't stop. I can't stop. Stop running and who knows what will happen. I could hear it, its footsteps as I ran, this time much faster. Little me, with his tiny legs, tried the best he could to outrun it. What used to be unknown just minutes ago was now charging at me in efforts to catch me. Heavy breathing was traversing the air. Screams were echoing, growling noises were heard, loud footsteps, tear marks on the ground. One little boy and an unknown trespasser, who for unknown reasons and unknown goals wanted to catch him. There it was, the door. I could feel the sense of hope, and the numerous times I thought to myself, I can do it, I'm almost there. Mum, Dad, I'm almost there. Looking back, the thing was right behind me, glaring at me, growling and reaching out for me. With my last strength I had left, I immediately reached out for the handle, opened the door, closed myself inside. There I was, lying on the ground. I could hear that thing again, knocking. I was so tired and so relieved that I'd outrun it, that I had forgotten my sole reason for even coming to this room in the first place. As I was lying down, catching my breath, I noticed a musty smell in the room. Something was wrong. My parents' room had never smelled so unpleasantly before. I stood up, brushed all the dust off my so precious pyjamas, although those were the least of my concerns at the moment, because right in front of me were two bodies, deformed to such unrecognisable forms that one would mistake it for a different animal. Unfortunately for me, it was clear that those were my parents. Knock, knock. The knocking sound was back, this time more aggressive than before. I panicked. What do I do? It's right there. Mum, Dad, knock, knock. I start quietly sobbing and decide that if my time has arrived, then so be it. Using my last efforts, I put my cold, shaky hand on my mouth in attempts to be quieter. I close my eyes and lie on the ground with my two parents' bodies on top of me. And then it happened. The knocking intensified, faster and louder than before, till eventually it barged in through the door. My vision was blocked. All I had was my hearing. My nose was clogged with the grim smell the bodies were letting out. Slow footsteps were approaching. All that was going through my mind was, please don't find me. Please don't find me. The thing, almost as if reading my mind, went out of the room. Next to my parents' bedroom was my dad's office. He always told me to never go in there, for unknown reasons. However, my parents' bedroom was the worst place to hide in at the moment, as it was the last location it saw me in. I crawled towards the office, holding my breath, tears and cries in. You could hear it looking for me upstairs. I gently grabbed the door, which was excruciatingly hard, as I couldn't stop myself shaking in fear. The door opens. A cold breeze hits me in the face, coming from inside the room. You can hear the sound of papers being blown from the wind. I go inside and use my little strength to push some old small couch to the door, in hopes to somehow block it from entering, although we all know that would never work with a small couch like that. On my dad's desk, you could see his laptop, papers, the pen he was always writing with whenever I used to come in here to tell him that Mum's calling us for dinner. I miss my parents so much, I say. I have to make it out of here. I was very young. You would probably suggest to use the laptop to call for help, but we can't just assume I know the password. At the far right corner, I glimpse a landline phone, the ones that nowadays would be called ancient. I probably got the emergency number wrong a couple of times due to panicking and being unable to keep my thoughts straight. Eventually, I dialed 911 and help was coming. The person on the other end of the line seemed very level-headed and managed to calm me down a bit as I was hiding under my dad's desk. A couple of minutes later, loud noises echo through the walls, and for some time after that, quietness took over the house. A moment after that, I could hear the sirens of the ambulances and the police cars coming to my home, and I decided to go out of the room and meet them at the entrance. The thing was nowhere to be found. All that was left of the scene were my parents, both gone, me shivering in fear, and a couple of broken furnitures. I don't know what it was, who it was, where it is, or what it wanted. All I know was that it meant no good, and even though I saw its appearance, you could say it's still unknown as to what was so unusual that you can't even describe it unless you see it for yourself. That thing is still not found. It's lurking, possibly knocking at someone else's door right now, walking around inside someone else's home. Whatever it is, whatever it wants, do not answer the door and don't let it in. I've never told anyone about this, not outside of therapy, I guess. They suggested that I write it down to the best of my ability to remember, and then by writing it out, I can process it better. I've been numb to it for so long. I've written a fair amount, but not this. Nothing about this. So, here goes nothing. I was maybe 16 when it happened, late 2000s, just before the fall of 2010. I was helping my uncle with moving stuff in his garage, and then I headed back home. It's not far from town, so I walked. I had decided to take a different way than my usual route, taking my time. Going through the park and coming through a different way to my house, figuring it would be a good shortcut. I lived on the other side of town. The town I live in is a small one, nothing special, maybe around 800 people as of the last census back then, probably even less now. It's one of those towns in Iowa you kinda just pass on through, not caring about what goes on there anyway. Maybe stop for gas and food, then be on your merry way. There's a high school, a small museum, a library, a main street with sparse businesses, the usual. It used to be a town on the up and up, but sometime in the early 70s it began to decline, maybe even earlier, depends on who you ask, I guess. The main businesses and working buildings were close to the main road, as were the other side of the town, and buildings with boarded up windows and peeling paint, some with no trespassing signs nailed to the old shop doors. An old candy shop and soda shop was near the park, but now they're nothing but husks of their former selves. Kids probably having their sundaes and root beer floats after a hot day on the jungle gyms way back when. I passed by these old, decaying places, forming half memories that weren't mine, but in a different time. I turned to go through a small alley, the old brickwork covered in etchings from kids both past and present, mostly saying things like, "Nick was here," and "Cody likes it up the ass," among other ones. Some spray paintings of crooked and jumbled symbols, almost like malformed swastikas, probably made by edgy teens who kept messing up, creating a weird alphabet of C's, G's, E's and F's with extra limbs. Got nothing else better to do, I guess. I passed by this one building I hadn't seen before. The birds were still chirping away, I remember that, 'cause that's when I heard it. A mewling like a cat, high and in distress, coming from inside this old, decrepit storage building, an old repair shop. The garage doors were firmly shut, but some of the windows were broken, not boarded up like the others, probably recent. The mewling came once, then again, shaky, almost broken. It sounded like it was in pain, that kind of drawn-out cry animals make when they're scared or hurt. I started walking towards it, thinking it was just a stray that needed help, but then I noticed something else. Everything else had stopped, dead silent, nothing except the sound coming from the building. No birds, no bugs, not even wind, like the air itself had paused to listen. It came again, high and then low, almost growling. There was a strange trill in the back of it, like a bird call that got tangled in the throat. I remember thinking it was like a parrot trying to imitate a cat, but not quite getting the shape of the sound right. It was coming out wrong. In any given situation, I would have ignored it. Probably just another stray or two, probably ducking it out or something inside the old building. But part of me just wanted to check, make make sure that it was a cat, then they're either stuck or just scared. Cats often do make strange noises when they're stressed or, in heat. I've seen plenty of stray cats around town back then, but not anymore. The closer I got to the door, the more something in me pulled back. Not fear exactly, more like a warning, like whatever was inside didn't want help, it wanted to be heard. I should have listened to my gut. Call it stupidity, but I decided to peek inside the door, barely moving it aside to see. My heart thumped like a war drum, my hands were clammy, breath shallow. I tried not to make a sound. Looking back, I should have run, should have spared myself the nightmares. That thing inside kept mewling, like a bird trying to give birth to a cat. Inside was what I expected, an older repair shop, a single rusted Cadillac shell resting in one of the bays, still on a jack, like someone had just stepped out mid-repair and never came back. I couldn't see much else, just thin streams of light from the open door and shattered windows cutting across the dark. But then the smell hit me before my eyes adjusted, musky, muddy and coppery, like wet earth soaked in blood and aged urine. I recoiled at the wall of stench, putting a hand over my nose and mouth as I tried not to vomit, not daring to make a sound. Then I saw something move, something big. I can't describe it, even years later I can't. Every time I try, my mind blanks, just freezes over, like I'm seeing something that shouldn't exist, let alone be alive. It was like looking at one of God's mistakes. What I do remember were the eyes, big, glassy, almost mirror-like, so reflective I swear I saw myself in them. They shifted toward me in the dim light, looking almost like a pair of spotlights, focused on me. It stopped making that god-awful noise just for a moment. I was frozen. Every cell in my body screamed at me to run. It wasn't a cat. It was never a cat. I didn't decide to run. My body did. I bolted, sprinting all the way home. The thing mewed behind me, louder this time. Hearing that thing mewl again in an awful gurgling noise halfway between a shrill bird call and something else. Not so much like an animal reacting to a person, but something worse. I ran, just ran. I didn't want to see if it was chasing me or not. All I know is that noise never left me. When I got home, I slammed the door behind me and locked it. My mum yelled at me, about ready to beat my ass, when she saw the look on my face, saw I was shaking and breathing hard, and was immediately concerned. She asked me what was wrong. I didn't talk about it, not to her, not to anyone for years. I would have sounded insane if I tried. After a while, the nightmares still came and went. I sometimes heard it outside my window at night. I prayed that I didn't know where I lived. Over time, I began to notice something else. There weren't any strays around town anymore. Even the friendly ones, one by one, they vanished. I remember folks around town talking about the noise, talking about shooting the strays, finding the one that's making all those noises, not even paying attention to the fact that all the cats had gone, probably eaten or absorbed or whatever. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if the place we leave behind give birth to monsters, beings that don't care for human reason. They just exist, because we left them space to do so. They're not under your bed, not in your closet, not even in your head. They're out there, in the lonely, forgotten places, places where no life exists or even should, until it does. I don't know what it was in that old shop, and I don't care to know. I don't go down that alley anymore. In fact, I don't live in that godforsaken town in western Iowa anymore. It's been over 10 years since moving away. I don't ever want to see that thing again, nor hear its cry. I don't care what it was. I just know that if I ever see it again, it might remember me next time, and I don't know what that would mean. Just be careful out there. They always say the real monsters are humans, which is true, but we forget that monsters still live in the dark, in the most likely and unlikely of places that time has forgotten. Just don't go looking for those weird noises. You never know what you might find.